morning, Heart City kids. I'm so glad you're watching with us this morning. Today we're going to dig into another story from our Jesus Storybook Bible. But first, I wanted to play a little game to see how much you guys remember from our last few stories. All right, so this is how it's going to work. We're going to play a true or false game. I'm going to read a statement and you're going to have 5 seconds to tell me if it is true or false. And Pastor Chris is going to put it on the screen so you can see it. All right, you ready? Let's start. The first statement is, the Bible is broken up into 3 sections, true or false. If you said false, you would have been correct. The Bible is broken up into 2 sections, the New Testament and the Old Testament. All right, statement number 2, true or false. God made the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. Do you think it's true or do you think it's false? 5 seconds. You're right. It is a true statement. God made the whole world in 6 days, and then on the 7th day, he rested. All right, here's our last review question, and this one comes from last week. God loved Adam and Eve even after they disobeyed him. That one is true. God loved Adam and Eve even after they ate the fruit, and he loves you no matter what.
Last week, we read a story about Adam and Eve and how sin entered the world when they disobeyed God. In this week's story, everyone on earth is disobeying God and forgetting all about him. Here's that story. A new beginning. Time passed and many people filled the earth. Everyone everywhere had forgotten about God and were only doing bad things all the time. God's heart was filled with pain when he saw what had happened to the world he loved. Everywhere was disease and death and destruction, all the things God hates most. Now Noah was God's friend, which was odd in these days because no one else was. Noah listened to God, he talked to God, and he just loved being with God, like you do with your best friend. Noah, God said, things have gone wrong. People have filled my world with hate instead of love. They are destroying themselves and each other and my world. I must stop them. First, we'll build an ark. Do you know how to build an ark? Neither did Noah. Luckily, God knew, and he would show him. A storm is coming, God told Noah, but I will rescue you. I promise. I'll send the animals to you, ones that creep and crawl and slither and slime and gallop and hop and bound and climb. And don't forget, pack everyone's food. The storm was going to wash away all the hate and sadness and everything that had gone wrong and make the world clean again. God had thought up a way to keep Noah safe, but Noah would have to trust God and do exactly what God told him to do. So, Noah built an ark, short for a very large boat. Noah's neighbors came out to watch and point and laugh because they didn't believe Noah about the boat or the storm, or needing to be rescued, and Noah must have looked rather silly. His boat was in the desert, and the desert was nowhere near the sea. There wasn't even a cloud in the sky. Why would anyone need an umbrella, let alone a boat? But Noah didn't mind so much what other people thought. He minded what God thought. So he just did what God told him to do. Then the ark was ready. God said, "All aboard," and Noah and his family and all the animals climbed inside. Then God shut the door. And it started raining. For minutes, and that joined up into hours, that joined up into days, that joined up into weeks and weeks, and the rain joined up into puddles, that joined up into rivers, and that joined up into lakes, and that joined up into a flood that covered the whole world. Their boat had once seemed so big, and it suddenly seemed very small. But in the middle of a huge storm and the crashing waves, and all the thunder and the lightning, through it all, God was with them. And God kept them safe for 40 long days and 40 long nights. Finally, the rain stopped. The sun came out, and Noah threw open all the windows. "Hooray!" everyone shouted. Noah sent his dove out to explore, and it wasn't long before she brought him back a fresh olive leaf. Everyone knew exactly what that meant. She had found a tree and land. The water was going down. At last, the boat landed quite suddenly on top of a great mountain. As soon as it was safe, God said, "Out you come," and so they did, everyone skipping and dancing onto dry land. The first thing Noah did was to thank God for rescuing him, just as he had promised. And the first thing God did was make another promise. I won't ever destroy the world again. And, like a warrior who puts away his bow and arrow at the end of the great battle, God said, "See, I've hung up my bow in the clouds." And there in the clouds, just where the storm meets the sun, was a beautiful bow made of light. It was a new beginning in God's world. It wasn't long before everything went wrong again, but God wasn't surprised. He knew this would happen. That's why, before the beginning of time, he had another plan, a better plan. A plan not to destroy the world, but to rescue it. A plan to one day send his own son, the rescuer. God's strong anger against the hate and sadness and death would come down once more, but not on his people or his world. No. God's war bow was not pointing down at his people. It was pointing up into the heart of heaven. Wow, what a story! Noah listened to God, and God saved Noah and his entire family from a flood that covered the whole earth. God promised that he would never flood the earth again after that flood, and God keeps his promises. But sadly, the world did not stay good after that flood. In fact, sin entered the world again. But God has a plan, and we are going to learn all about that plan. Let's go back to Pastor Kirsten for her to teach us a fun activity. And after that, I'll be sure and teach you guys a new memory verse for this week.
Remember how God saved 2 of every kind of animal by having Noah get them on the ark? Well, I thought it would be kind of fun if we drew a picture of our favorite animal to remind us of this story and God's promise to us. I only had a pen at my house, but you can use whatever you have. If you have markers, crayons, colored pencils, anything. And we would love to see what you've drawn. And so you can have a parent or an older adult help you post a picture of your picture in the comments. Here's mine. I drew a giraffe because I love giraffes.
Now we are going to learn a memory verse for this week. Are you guys ready? The memory verse for the week comes from the first book of the Bible in the Old Testament. Do you know what that one is? That's right, the book of Genesis. And our verse comes from Genesis chapter 9, verse 15, and this is what it says. "I will remember my promise, and I will never flood the earth again." I'll put that verse up on the screen for you guys to practice some more at home. And if you guys can memorize that and show us that you learned it, either in video online, in a comment, or in a message, or in person next week at church, we'll have a special gift for you. Thank you so much for joining today, kids. Let me pray. God, thank you so much for each and every one of these kids that we got to hang out with for just a few minutes today. Thank you so much for rescuing Noah and his family from the flood, and thank you so much for the rescue plan that you have for us as well. We love you, Jesus. Amen.